Welcome to the Keeping You On Stage podcast. Join us as we dive into the vibrant world of dance, sharing our insights and experiences while spotlighting the incredible talents within our community. Each episode features engaging conversations with guests who bring their unique expertise and stories to the table, enriching our understanding of this beautiful art form. Our motto, Keeping You On Stage, drives our mission to celebrate and uplift dancers of all backgrounds. Whether you're a beginner, a seasoned performer, or a passionate enthusiast, this podcast is your backstage pass into the dance world. Tune in and let's keep the spotlight shining bright.
Welcome back to the Keeping You On Stage podcast. This is our series, The Teachers Who Shaped Us, where we reflect on the mentors and educators who left a lasting mark on our dance journey. We're your hosts,
Hailee
and Brooke, and I'm going to let Hailee introduce our guest today.
I'm so excited to be here. Today's guest is a ballet teacher who made a lasting impression on me in my early years of dancing. I'm so excited to welcome Peter Christie, the one and only Peter Christie. Okay, so I just want to read a little bit of your bio. Peter grew up in upstate New York. It said that you were born in a different part of New York.
Brooklyn, New York City.
I've never been. I would love to go to.
I don't remember it. I was little,
Little.
and then we moved away. So
Okay.
And you've never been back.
I've been to the city to visit and stuff, but I never, not like living.
Lived there.
Yeah, for a long period of time.
He began his dance training at the age of 9. At age 15, he entered the Syracuse Ballet School in New York. And upon high school graduation, he joined Hartford Ballet's teacher training program in Connecticut. Peter joined Ballet West in 1982. He was especially noted for his character roles and was promoted to soloist in 1991. After dancing with the company for 16 years, he joined the artistic staff of Ballet West in 1998. He also was a member of the Ballet West Academy faculty beginning in 1992 and served as director of the Ballet West Academy from 2004 to 2015. Peter has taught for several local ballet schools, conducted master classes for Ballet West on tour, nationally and internationally. Peter also volunteered as an assistant choreographer for the opening and closing ceremonies for the 2002 Winter Olympics.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
That's really neat. I actually remember watching that and just being like, who did all the choreography? That's really cool.
It was massive.
Oh,
yeah.
I can't even imagine. I was really young. I was in junior high, I think, when the Olympics were here. I wonder how many, was it kids that participated?
Kids and adults. Yeah,
I wonder how many.
The summer of 2001, we had all the auditions and you had like clogging groups and like so many different people that auditioned to be part of it. And a lot of them, like you wouldn't think, but like the train coming down the track, the stadium and stuff, like, so we had so many different performers that did different styles and a lot of kids there was the ice element and then the land element. And so you had the Children of Light. In fact, I've got, so I actually have a light there.
Oh, how neat.
Yes.
That's really neat.
Yeah, so it was fun.
No,
but I don't think I would do it again because I'm not as young as I was.
Yeah, that's a lot. Oh, I can't even imagine. I'm going to have to look it up and go back and watch it because that would be really interesting to watch it. So now, jumping ahead, you are the director of education and outreach here at Ballet West.
Right.
Peter was one of my regular ballet teachers at Ballet West Conservatory. That's what it was called.
At that time.
And I remember you had this way of never letting anything slip past you in class. I remember that. You had an eye for detail, I feel like. I remember your very challenging adagio combinations. That's what I remember you for, is that. And I remember your high standards taught me so much about discipline, artistry, and hard work. That's why I say nothing slipped past you. Like, you expected a lot from us, even though we were young, but nothing slip past you. Sometimes when the teacher walks by, you're on your best behavior and then they move past and you're like, okay, I can relax. But not with you. That's not how it was. So welcome, Peter.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for inviting us here at this beautiful new campus. How long has it been here?
We moved into this space, which is connected to the Capitol Theater, which is really cool, 2015.
Okay, so it's been 10 years now.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, it's beautiful here in Salt Lake City. It's amazing. Okay, so we're just going to get into it with some questions that I have for you.
Great.
So we're going to talk about your journey into ballet. and with ballet. So I'd love to start by hearing your story. What first brought you to ballet, and how did your path eventually lead you to teaching and working with Ballet West? So that's kind of a four-part question.
And you've got a couple of hours that you can
Yeah.
okay. Yeah,
Much time as you want.
it's a long story.
Yes.
So first started dancing when I was 9.
Okay.
Because my younger sister, I have 5 younger sisters and an older brother. And the sister right after me wanted to take ballet lessons. We grew up in a small town, upstate New York, on a farm. And so we went to sign her up, and the teacher would drive up from Syracuse to this small town and do classes a couple of days a week.
Okay.
And so she only took a certain number of students because she was limited. She was the one that would taught the classes, and she didn't generally start with young dancers until they were 9. But my sister was 8, but she didn't have any boys in the school. So I was with them because I rode along. And the teacher said, well, if he takes, I'll take her into the school, and then I'll also give you guys scholarships, because she wanted a boy in her school.
Yeah.
She didn't have any boys. So my mom said, he'll take.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I started.
Yeah.
And so I did that, all through growing up and through high school. And my sister didn't stay with it, but I did. And then when I was in high school, I did well in school. I got good grades, and I graduated like 5th in my class and whatever.
wow.
It was, so I did well. And you take your ACTs and SATs, you send them to universities. And I was like, I don't know what I want to do. Let's see what is out there. So I sent my scores to different universities, and they would send back how you would rank according to other freshmen.
Yeah.
And the university here had a ballet department. And because I was out of state, they wanted out-of-state students, and my scores were high enough. They just sent me a letter automatically of acceptance. And then with my major being dance, I got a scholarship. And so I was all set to go to the university's ballet department. And the people that were in Syracuse, Tony and Sirpa Salatino, he was the director, and she taught in the school, were moving to Hartford.
Okay.
And in that spring of 1979,
Before I was born. Before we were born.
dating myself, I had gone into New York City on a trip, and I auditioned for the School of American Ballet. And so I had grown up dancing, but the training was not good.
Oh,
It was once a week for an hour, 2
Yeah.
hours, so how good can you get with that little bit
Yeah.
of training? I'm in this audition with these amazing dancers, and there's only like 4 of us, and 2 boys and 2
wow.
girls, another boy and these 2 other girls. And afterwards, then we met with and I wish I could do a Russian accent, because she was hysterical. She was very Russian, and she's like, you should quit, because you'll never get a job in ballet. You're really not well trained at all.
Wow.
And the fact of the matter is, like, I really didn't have any training. And so there was a challenge, but I used that later on when I was directing the school. I did have a career, but I had to go through a different route.
Yeah.
So Tony and Sipper were going to Hartford that had this accredited teacher training program that you can get college, grants and credit for it and be certified. And the thing about the program was you were learning how to teach pedagogy, a syllabus, a style of dancing, kinesiology, music theory, dance history. It was a wide encompassing program, which was great because you learned so much about the art form. But there was the physical element of actually being at the bar in a class with 8-year-olds, learning what is the syllabus for an 8-year-old dancer. And they're like, okay, what are you doing in my class? They're much better than I ever was. And so you learn the process of the development of what is
going through
the brain capable of, integrating into the movements and things like that. Certain things happen at certain ages. And so it was a great experience. And because I was a little bit older, I could move through that and actually rationalized and say, oh, this is what I didn't get in my training. And this is what I need to be. So it was a great way, not just to learn how to teach, but also to work on my own dance technique, which greatly had suffered. And so it was an accelerated program because you would do, this program for a number of weeks, and then the next year for another couple of weeks, like a few months, and then another.
Yeah.
So you moved up through the process. And so that was during the day. And then in the afternoon, I was involved in the actual academy,
Oh,
the
okay.
school, the Ballet West or the Hartford School of Ballet. And
Mhm.
so I was getting double coverage.
Yeah,
And so
that's
I learned a lot and made a lot of progress. And then I got a contract as a member of their chamber company, like a Ballet West or
okay.
like a Hartford Ballet
Yeah,
too kind
yeah.
of thing. So and a lot of companies do that
Mhm.
now, but it was my first kind of introduction in that company setting. So I did that for a year and then I got a full company contract the next year. In the spring, the company would go on tour. The older members of the company would go on a smaller tour through New England and do
Oh, that's
performances.
amazing.
And those of us that were younger were kind of left behind.
Oh,
So
okay.
we would be taking classes in school and we would on the weekends we'd take the train into New York and stay with a friend of mine that
Mhm.
had an apartment and we'd sleep on the floor and then we'd go to the different auditions for the different companies that everybody held in the spring and you'd get these teachers from all over the world
Yeah, that's
teaching these
amazing.
classes so you could take these classes and this is the late 70s early 80s is it 80 82 so you'd have these people that were amazing teachers and
Mhm.
you'd get pretty far and then you could cut and you go get ice cream or
Yeah.
whatever. So it was
What a
free,
great experience
right?
too. Yeah.
And it didn't cost us anything
Yeah.
because at that point they weren't charging. Now it's like
You have to
$30 for an audition or, it's very expensive to find that first job. So we did that and we did a bunch of those like Boston Ballet and a bunch of companies. And I went to Hartford or to Ballet West
Oh,
audition,
yeah, okay.
and Bruce Marks was the director at the time, and literally there was like 300 people in the audition.
Oh, wow.
So we would stand in a line with our bag, our dance bag, and we would just walk across the floor from one corner to the door. And they would say, "Thank you for coming." And then people would leave or please find a spot at the
Nice.
bar. So they whittled down just from that
Just
first
from
walk
walking.
across the floor, which is a good thing you didn't pay $30 for
I
the
know.
audition.
Please, or just
So
walk across.
so that was kind of a nice feature. So they cut it down, and as class would progress through the different exercises, they would dismiss people until you get to a certain amount of dancers and you're then moving to the center and you're doing
Mhm.
exercises and things. And usually about halfway through center, most times we would all have been cut by then and it would take off. But
Yeah.
he kept me in the class, and there were by the end of the whole class there were 8 of us. And then he said at the end of the audition, "I'd like to speak to this person, and I was one of 4, 3
Oh.
other guys and a woman. And so then he offered me a job and I was like, "Well, I'm dancing in Hartford. I have a job. I just wanted to take your
Yeah.
class." And he's like, "Okay, well, how much are you making?" And how many? It was like 26 weeks of work. It was a small contract.
Oh, okay.
So you had to work on the side and have a
Mhm.
waiter's job and, all that. And then Ballet West was a much larger company, many more weeks of work, a much higher salary.
Wow.
So I accepted the position and I moved out to Utah. So I wound up here in Salt Lake City 3 years later anyway.
Okay.
So it was
Okay.
like
So you were
it was like destiny, it
Yeah.
was like this is where I'm meant to be. And I think if I had gone to the university, it would have been much harder for me because in Hartford, Tony and Sirpa she especially really kind of rode my
Yeah.
tail and said, "You need to be doing this and this is what you need to do." And she really
Yeah.
monitored my progression as a dancer to get me where I needed to be. So that was really helpful. And I don't think I would have gotten that at the university. You have to really be an adult and take care of
Yes.
yourself. And you have to have a lot of that discipline to do that. And again, because I wasn't really entrenched in the dance world, I didn't really have that kind of familiarity of what it
Mhm.
needed to be like to get a career.
Yeah.
So that was really helpful to kind of set me up. And so when they offered me the contract here, the director of the company in Hartford said, "If you stay here, the company was going to be splitting in half and they were going to do a sister city in Fort Worth and then Hartford, and they would share the productions. Like Nutcracker would be in
Okay.
both cities and you would do the bigger ballets and then you'd have your own rep in the city." And he goes, "You'll be doing more bigger roles." But I knew that I didn't have that kind of experience and it was too soon, or that was not within the realm of where I should be. I needed to be really practical about my training and get the experience. And that's what I got when I came out to Salt Lake is
Okay.
working in the company as a core dancer. You learned all these things that you didn't have that. And so that was a really good decision for my career to give me the basis to move forward.
Hmm.
and
Okay.
to have some longevity. Now, I was never destined to be an amazing technician. I always would say my whole career was really about being the one the girl didn't want. So like you have the prince and then like there's Albrecht and Giselle and she's supposed to be marrying Hilarion. That was me. But she fell in love with the other guy and they all wound up dead. Or like Karenin in Anna Karenin or Paris in Romeo and Juliet.
Yes.
I was always the one the girl didn't want.
Yes.
But
I mean,
but and then I would do a lot of, all the core ballet, things like that. And I moved up. And so I lasted as a dancer until 97, 98. And at that point, the director of the company was Jonas Koge.
Koge, yeah.
He had started a program when he first joined the company that was based on Jacques D'Amboise National Dance Institute in New York, where
Okay.
he worked with inner city kids.
Okay.
He started it for his son and his friends, Christopher D'Amboise, and then developed into this school for kids that would go into the public schools in New York, and you'd have classes, fourth, fifth, young kids. So Jonas wanted to start a program like that. His first year, I hadn't even met him yet, but John Hart had retired. But his wife stayed on as director of education, his ex-wife. He had gotten divorced. So Jonas came on and he said, I want to start this program. I got along well with kids, knew all the education programs that we did. He said, would you go to New York for the summer? And then in the fall, we'll start this program in the public schools. And we started at Benyon and Whittier, 2 schools in Salt Lake City.
Okay.
And so I would get up early at like 8:00 when the schools started at 8:10, and we would do a class. And then I'd come into work and have my regular ballet classes and rehearsals through the day.
Okay.
And then in the spring, we did a big performance with all these kids from these 2 schools and the company. And so we kind of created this program. Mary, towards the end of that, right in the spring, decided to retire. So she left.
Okay.
I had my talk with Jonas. We have a yearly talk about what our contract's going to be for the next year. Is it going to be renewed or not? And he said, I've got some possibilities. If you could just hold off. He said, you'll have a job, but
I'm just not sure.
it might be a little bit outside the box. So Mary stopped like mid-year, like in March, maybe the end of February, March. And so he called me into his office and said, okay, Mary's left. I have this open position. And there's like, this many jobs as a dancer. And then there's this many as artistic staff and, on the business side of, especially the artistic side of dance, second career kind of thing.
Yeah.
There's even fewer. So you don't get those kind of opportunities that long. And I really liked being here in Salt Lake and working for this company. I've got a real passion for the company. I really respect what we've done over the years and the leadership that we've had. So I said, and he said, you could, dance for a few more years. I'd had knee surgery. It was cranky all the time.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, I'll stop dancing and take on this role. And I moved into the position of director of education outreach. So Mary had set up a lot of good documentation. It was really clear what was supposed to be done, what needed to be done for this year that we were finishing out. And then the following years, it was kind of predictable. This is who you reach out to. And so I kind of walked into that position, figuring things out, having participated in the program as a dancer, kind of being familiar with the programs and then figuring out how to deliver it into schools. So that was kind of the transition from dancer to staff.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the other element with the academy was Shari Lane was the one that was really kind of running the academy up at the university, even though the artistic director was the director of the company. She was the one that kind of made it happen. So it was up at the university for a while, and then the university wanted those studios. And so we had to find another space. And so we kind of adapted and moved into other spaces. And because I had known Shari since the early, mid 80s, I started dancing kind of on top of I started teaching on top of my dancing in the early 90s, like 92, 93. And a lot of it was not just teaching, but more like choreography.
Okay.
Because I enjoyed, creating ballets and doing that. And she gave me the opportunity to do that. And so that's how I got to know a lot of the young dancers. and worked with the academy, the conservatory at the time then. And then it just kind of stayed with it. And I would do it when it worked within my schedule. So I wasn't like a full-time faculty. It was part-time, coming in and doing a ballet here or there, or working on Saturday mornings when there was open and things like that. So that kind of progressed there until 2004. And we changed over from, we had moved downtown into a facility that used to be a carpet store.
Oh, okay. And this was
Downtown.
where, yeah, I remember it. I remember it there.
Small studios.
Yes, yeah.
And we didn't have a lot of students because we were also very dependent on other studios
Yeah.
for students that wanted to train with us, but they were older.
Yeah, okay.
And we had
Right.
just started classes with younger students at around that time period. And
Because you
also,
did have to be a certain age.
right,
I
you had to be a
remember.
certain level.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then we started more beginner level classes when we moved downtown.
Mhm.
And so with that, there was a changeover in administration towards the early 2000s, 2004. And I wound up going from teaching to directing the academy. And at the time, we were a small school. We only had about 70 kids. And by the end of Jonas's tenure of being here, we were up to about 200 kids in the school. But we were also in several different
Different places.
because we got kicked out of the space that was the carpet store. And so we had a studio at the Utah Opera, which was great. They worked with us so generously, gave us great rates for the huge dance studio they had here. And then we also used the studio that was upstairs. So it gave us an opportunity to kind of rebuild and build up the numbers of students. And after Jonas left, then we brought in some staff. Jan Fugit, Jeff Rogers came on board as a teacher. Katie Snar, Lisa Hoyt was also working with us as administrator. So it was Lisa and I kind of running all the administrative side and scheduling and
a lot.
So because I was in the office in my role as a director of education, I had connections. So we then really tied into the company marketing and the company financing and things like the financial people that would do the billings and things like that. So that really kind of helped stabilize a lot of that. And so the organization as an academy, really, it changed its name. It really grew.
Yeah.
And so at a certain point in time, around 2014, 2015, it had gotten so large. And Adam Skloot, who was the director at that time, decided it was too much because I was also doing all the education and outreach stuff. And so we needed, because we had about 600 kids in the school, it had really grown huge. And we're working out of just a few studios too. So it was a lot of juggling, and the staff at the time really worked hard, and it was good training, but not necessarily the ideal situation for studio space until we got this building. We moved in here in 2015. So right around that time period is when we hired a new director for the academy.
Oh, okay.
And so that kind of moved forward. And then I went back to just education and outreach, which had grown also over the years as well. And so that's kind of where I've been really housed since then, is in education and outreach, community, K-12 programming. Particularly, we get really, really well funded from the state. It's a matching grant. So when we get money from, let's say, if as an arts organization you get $100,000, you have to match with another $100,000. So it's a 50-50.
That's great.
We get financed really well from the state. It's a part of a group called POPs.
Okay.
Professional organizations presenting in schools. So Utah Opera, Utah Symphony, Rye Woodbury, RDT, Utah Museum of Fine Arts, Springfield Museum, all these arts groups. Now we have Media Arts, Utah Film Center, Spy Hop, Utah Shakespeare Festival. So there's 15 organizations that work in conjunction with the State Board of Education for accountability. Are we core curriculum based, life skills, career and college readiness? Judiciarily, are we responsible with the money that we're getting?
Right.
How do we provide those? So you have to file a state report every year. It's online. So if anybody's interested, they can always check it out and see what we've done. And there's multiple years of the report. Scroll all the way down to the bottom of the webpage, and you can tap into our reports. But it's interesting to watch the development of that, the programming and how much more we can serve the state.
Yeah.
So
good for the kids.
yeah, and that's where like the Ballet West for Kids, we have a program that goes out and provides an assembly in the schools, and we go through the entire state. So that's part of the funding requirement, is that you serve the whole state. And you have programs, and there's different elements, whether it's an assembly in the school or they bus in to see performances, or there's hands-on instructions in the classroom. So that program that I started with Jonas, where we were at 2 schools at 8:00 in the morning, now has like 14 schools. And we do big assembly at the end of the year with half of the schools on one night and the other half of the other. So there's like 1,000 people in a gym on both sides. So it's in the round. And
Are these elementary schools or are they junior highs?
for the I Can Do program, the hands-on instruction is starts with 5th graders.
Okay.
And then we rotate those classes. There are a few select kids that come back each year that we create a special team that then comes back, and
That's so neat.
and they work on Saturdays. And so that program blossomed into a much larger program as well. And then over time, particularly through COVID, we wound up doing we had been pushing to be able to use technology because everything, according to the funding, had to be one-on-one, face to face, in person, in the theater, assembly at your school, and it's instructive. But there's all the stuff that we have developed over the last numbers of years that incorporate technology. Even just the fact that you're providing study guides online versus papers that you had to reproduce. So it allows teachers to be more flexible in what they download and much more green.
Yes.
You're not printing off hundreds of pages of paper. You're not spending a ton on a fortune on postage, because we would mail out these packets, and we have a lot of repeat teachers. And so you don't necessarily need all of that because they've been through it a number of times. And then others are new. The state was really hesitant to embrace that technology. And in 2017, they said, okay, well, if it enhances your in-person experiences, it's okay. So like study guides would be, and like things that would tie into, like, let's say we were going to do a workshop that we would normally do in a classroom. We could do like a Zoom type experience, which Zoom didn't really exist at that point. But we were going through a platform where we would dial into a school. But teachers were hesitant to do it because it was foreign. They didn't know how. They were nervous, and it was less than ideal. And then COVID hit, and we were getting funded, and we couldn't do anything in the schools, and we still were receiving funding. So we had to take all of our programming and put things online. So we did like our workshops, Zoom workshops, like the kids are dancing in their living rooms. They're doing the classes. They all dialed in their teacher's Zoom account, and we'd have our dancer teacher leading those kids in their classrooms. And so we just really learned how to maximize what we could through the technology that had developed. And teachers then got really familiar with the concept, and they're again now much more willing to say, oh when are you free? Let's schedule it. And so rather than have to drive to the school and hold a workshop, you can still do that in person, but you can also do it online. We also created recordings of performances that were then able to be viewed in the classroom. Like we created a family series. So each year Adam was like Aladdin and Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast. And it's basically designed for young audiences.
That's really
and it's narrated. Cool. So then we took those productions, and they were all in English. At the beginning of COVID, we created them in Spanish and with closed captioning for kids that are hearing impaired. And then we sent out the information to the schools so they can sign up to view them. So let's say you live down in Montezuma Creek in the Four Corners area of the state, down in San Juan District. You could see the performance.
That's really
And
cool.
Then you could also have a workshop that's connected to it, because we could beam into their classrooms through Zoom. And so it gave a lot of opportunity for them to have that connection.
And more outreach too.
Exactly. And then you're really serving the whole state.
Mhm.
So since COVID, we've had a major drop in like how many we could serve those first years of COVID. But then it really built last year. I think Ballet West has one of the largest, if not the largest, number of impacted individuals through our outreach and education programs. Over 150,000 students and teachers. There's really not anybody else that's doing those kind of far-reaching, and it's not really innovative. It's just how do we deliver it? But the really cool thing about it is because we have these programs and we're well-funded and we're really well-established, now we're looking at what else can we do?
Yeah.
What can we do with what kind of apps could we build? What can we do that's interactive? Could you put on a pair of Google goggles and be a snowflake? And instead of like just sitting in the audience and watching it, could you be actually like moving through and experience that? Or could you make a video game that, incorporates context? Could you,
There's nothing like that out there. Like that would be so cool.
And we've got, Silicon Slopes, and we've got other like Newmont University is probably going to be hopefully one of our big relationships that we develop to create that kind of programming that really thinks outside the box. And so it's really about dreaming and looking at how do we engage students, teachers, audiences that make it more relatable, more accessible, and intriguing so that they want to come and see it in the theater. Yeah. So it's all to build on what we have and make it more enticing for people to be more active in the performance, the live element. So it's how do you use technology to say, because there's so much, and it's with AI and all the things, it's constantly evolving. And so you want to kind of be part of the conversation instead of going, oh, that already happened. And things that we talked about.
And evolve with it too.
Right. Things that we talked about a year ago now are like outdated, and so you're like, okay.
Sometimes it's exhausting.
Yeah. One of the,
it is amazing.
But simple things like, so a glossary. As a student, you learn, what does tendu mean? To stretch.
To stretch, yeah.
Right? Plie, to bend. So there's this basic kind of dry glossary.
Yeah.
So towards the end of COVID, the dancers were working, but we couldn't go into schools. So we took all the dancers for like 2 or 3 weeks. So we went into the studio and we filmed all the different dancers, and we had lots of options. And we said, okay, let's look at these exercises and break them down. So this is a plie, and there's the definition, and she's or he is in a unitard. And then as the music's playing, it bleeds into a performance of Ballet West.
Yeah,
so like, let's say Grand Plie, and it's dun, 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 and then, so you're like doing that in the classroom, and then suddenly you have the Russian guys going across the stage. You're like, okay, now I get it. Yeah.
And not only for someone that like doesn't know about dance, but someone that is taking dance like as a young
It's cool.
student,
It's different.
being like, why did we do this? And well, this is why, So
and part of it is just having the time to be able to do it.
Yeah.
And so we took advantage of that time and said, let's create this. And so we created it as a teacher resource. And there's probably, I think we've got like 70 to 100 like glossary terms, promenade, pantomime, core work. And it's, if you go to the website and the community pages, go to teacher resources, glossary, you look it up, and you can see clip after clip after clip after clip.
I can't wait to show my 6-year-old.
Yeah. I know. Well, and even as a teacher, going in there, that's what my big thing is, making sure that they knew all the terms and things like that. But sometimes it was like, well, where do I even find all of that? It was hard for me to go find it, and so you just kind of have to make it up. So having something like that,
and so
would be amazing.
That's really on our community pages, but we also started releasing them on our social media. So on Ballet West on Tutu Tuesday, have you seen some?
Yes.
So you've probably seen some of them. And so now we can take that and share it with everybody. And it drives them to the website and drives them to look and investigate more things that kind of help educate the general audience as well as our K-12. So it's, but it's something that I had thought about doing for a long, long time, but it just never presented itself as easily done. Having the dancers have that time of availability and the studio open, and then I can pay them, hire them to create these for those weeks that they're working. And it's all education based. So it works with the funding that we get and create these interactive. So it's that kind of thing, that ability to kind of dream and say, okay. And so I have to say, like, the last 3-4 years, I have been really stimulating for me because I feel like I'm learning so much. And I think that's part of what makes life fun is you never stop learning.
Yes.
Because when you stop, then it's like, what's the point? Right. And that's what's really fun is like every day I come in and I learn something new. Like even like, okay, in this Excel program, you could like do this, this, and this, and, email merges and all these different tools, Google Forms to like sign up for the delivery of the virtual programs. What do you want to see? In order to get these programs, you have to fill out this information. So then I can also have really accurate information to report to the state, like how many kids are going to watch this? How many teachers? What district are you with? What school? Which productions do you want to see? And so all of that kind of makes reporting easier because you have they don't get the password if they don't fill it. It's that little red asterisk. You've all filled out the Google Forms and they won't let you go any farther if you haven't answered it. And so it requires you to, and before that, when we first created in the early years after when COVID hit, like you would send out an email and hope that they answered all the questions. And then as we learned how to use that Google form and the technology, it made it so much easier.
Yeah. We just learned how to use Google Form sure too.
So does that answer your question?
Yes. Honestly, it's so good. I love the detail and the background, and that's perfect.
Yeah.
COVID was hard. It was rough. But I do think COVID brought about a lot of really good things. I mean,
you had the
like you just
opportunity
told
either to
us,
wallow in it or to grow from it.
Yeah.
And I think
grew
the
a
whole
lot.
company really took into account for growing into a better use of a lot of things.
It was a hard time for, like for a professional dancer. I feel like
It was.
Entertaining industry.
entertainment,
Yeah.
the arts, and
Students. Oh my gosh. We are just now getting to a whole generation of kids that never had that socialization, because they were COVID kids, first, second, third, fourth. Our in-school program is this year working with fifth graders that have been consistently in school.
Okay. Yeah.
Since COVID. And so a lot of the last few years before that, the socialization and how they got along, and it was different. It was very different.
It seems like just barely seems so far away. COVID was crazy.
Well, I just have to like pat you on the back. Listening to you talk about COVID in those years, and it was something that's just been on my mind. Like, oh, I wonder how that affected.
Yeah.
And I think because you're so positive and you took that as an opportunity of saying, let's grow, let's
think outside the box.
Let's think outside the box.
Yeah.
That you really just not that this was struggling in any way, but you really just took that and you just ran with it.
And I think it's the climate here at Ballet West too, because it comes from the top. It's Adam Skloot, it's Michael Scolomir, who's the executive director. It's the development, it's the marketing. It's everybody that works in the administrative side and the artistic side. Right. It's not just one-sided to say, okay, these are some hard times, but we were one of the first companies that really came back into the theater. So we did 20% houses, and there was like your group of tickets was 6 feet away from the nearest next group. So, so we didn't have full houses, but our dancers were still performing, and they were performing with masks on. And, so you just worked within the summer, the situation we were with and said, how do we make this work and still let the dancers feel like progressed, even though it was so difficult for them to be on their own, like being in shape and staying in shape and feeling artistically fulfilled and, all that goes into the package. There's so much that was there. And I think there was such support from the top down for all the elements, including the academy. We were one of the first ones that did a summer. As the kids walked in, they were all checked for their temperature, so we had a full summer intensive the following after, COVID hit in March. And by the next, not that summer, but the following summer, yeah.
You're able to do one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think we even did that next. I want to say we did it.
did it
We
that
did that
summer.
summer.
I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. So, but it was like all within the parameters of what we could do. And so again, you're in the studio and you're 6 feet apart and
Yeah.
everybody's in masks and you're taking COVID tests all the time. And, but it also allowed other schools to say, well, how did you do it? What did you
We
do to
want
make it
to.
work?
Yeah.
And it emboldened other companies to kind of embrace, let's face this challenge and overcome it.
Yeah. That's amazing.
That is
That's really cool.
amazing.
So it was, that's the thing. Like you say, oh, Pat, yeah.
Yeah.
It's because
But everyone,
everybody,
the whole company.
yeah, it's that climate of, and it's one of the reasons why I like being here so much is because you have that support. You have, and people that are not afraid to dream.
Yes. Yeah.
Adam's like that with his repertory and how he hires his dancers and what, his vision of, such a huge percentage of the company have actually come through our schools.
Yeah.
Whether
Which
it's
is
through
so
Ballet
neat.
West 2 or, if you're going to have a school and you never hire from your school, what does that say about your
Right.
school?
Yeah.
Why would you want to train there if you aren't going to hire them? So he's been really demanding to say, again, that excellence, what they get and what he expects from those dancers, but also then you really get to know, instead of having somebody walk across the floor
Yeah.
and say, thanks for coming,
You
you
know
have
who
a
they are.
good 2-4 years to know these personalities.
Mm.
How are they going to interact? Are they reliable?
Yes.
Are they good to work with? Are they flexible enough to jump from one side of the stage to the other side?
Right. Can they handle all of it?
Not
Yeah.
just, can you do a triple pirouette?
Right. Right.
Because you can't tell that from an audition.
No.
You can say,
get
oh,
their
you can
very
do the
best.
technique, but it doesn't mean you know what their work ethic is
Right.
like.
Yeah. Well, that's actually very important.
Yeah.
Very important, especially when you're hiring someone for a job, and you want them to mesh well with other company members. And so
Yeah.
that's really neat. I love that.
The one thing somebody say, well, what if you're going to say something negative about Ballet West, what would it be? And it isn't really that it's negative because I don't really have much to say,
Yeah.
but Adam likes his dancers and his dancers like dancing here. So there's not a lot of turnover.
Yeah.
So if
That's
you
actually
train through a school and you only have a few positions open, that's challenging.
Yes.
But then you're helping them get jobs elsewhere
Yes.
because other company directors know the standard is high here and what is being produced is, then they get that attention and they know, oh, you've been through this program and you're getting a letter of recommend.
Right.
You're somebody that I want to work with.
Yeah. That's saying a lot.
That
That's
is saying
actually
a
not a
lot.
bad thing. It's a good
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
How lucky are we to have that in Salt Lake City?
Yeah.
I mean, that is really, we are so lucky.
I know. Very, very lucky. I know. I wish my school came, like my kids' school came here.
Set up
I
a
think I
field
mentioned
trip, and we don't charge for any of our programs.
Okay.
So if you have a school group that comes to see Peter Pan
Yeah.
or Romeo and Juliet, we don't charge for. You just have to come up with bus money.
Okay.
The arts here in Utah are incredibly well
Yeah.
supported. It was one
Love
of the
that.
things that Brigham Young said when he first did, from first to theater.
Yeah.
It's like, and it's being culturally educated. This state has such a high level of graduating, or like what levels of education do you have? Actually, the average person is much higher than high school. Whereas
Wow.
some states, you're lucky if you're like 9th grade education.
Yeah.
And so here, because education is important, and along with that, cultural education of our students in the state is a priority. And you see that because we do get supported from the legislature, we do get supported from the schools, the principal. There's such a demand for kids of what they have to cover. That's the biggest obstacle, is fitting in within their day.
Yeah.
Especially now
Yes.
there's 15 arts organizations instead of just 2.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you make your decision?
Yeah, I know.
So, yeah.
That's really neat. I honestly didn't know about all of that. I love that you're explaining all of this, because it's really good for me to know about it and everybody else listening, So I love that. One of my memories with you, actually, going back to kind of the education type thing, is it was called Ballet West for Kids. I just remember I don't remember how old I was, but junior high age. And me and a couple other girls from the conservatory. Basically, what we did was we went around to the elementary schools with a couple of the company members and we performed like a shortened version of Sleeping Beauty.
So you were the young Aurora.
Yes, so I was a young
Okay.
Aurora. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have a Nutcracker version and a Sleeping Beauty version. And there are a number of companies that send out their lecture demonstrations that are done by students from the school.
Oh, okay. Okay.
You were a
Love
student, but you played a student role
Yes.
of like Clara.
Yes.
Okay.
Didn't have a baby Aurora, but we had a
Yes.
young Aurora.
Young Aurora.
And so we don't do it that way
Mm-hmm.
anymore, but it's like this miniature version that you present, but you cover like all this
Yes.
in
the
like a
whole
50-minute
ballet.
program, all
Mhm.
this information about training and 5 positions and
Yes.
partnering
Mhm.
and, healthy lifestyles and,
Yeah.
life skills, career and college
Yeah.
readiness,
Yeah.
core curriculum concept, high level, what are different elements of dance?
Yeah. Mhm.
It's all in there. And so each of the dancers has a statement that they, paragraph that they talk about.
Yes.
They come out in different sections, and your character had something that
Yes.
a little speech you had to share as well.
Yes.
And
Very
that kind
shy, and it
it's
was,
kind of
yeah.
like instead of just having somebody up at the front of the room lecturing and saying, this is what we do, having the different dancers talk and you start to get to know it personalizes them. It gives the students in the school and the teachers a relationship that you, even though they're on the stage, you get to know about them and they become real people.
Yes. It was interactive too.
Yeah. And ballet can be kind of, as an art form, kind of elitist. It has that reputation for
Mhm.
being, ooh, foo-foo,
Yes, yeah.
whatever. And this makes it more accessible. It makes it more real.
Right. Yeah.
And you feel more comfortable
Mhm.
coming to the ballet if you have that kind of experience
Yeah.
young.
Well, and then even I just remember talking about all the different, like what the different pantomimes meant and, things like that. And even
Visit our
from,
glossary. You can
Yeah,
cover all that.
yeah. And so just even as
Yeah.
like a student watching, they're like, oh, that's what that means. Or,
Right.
like I actually would be interested in going to see a ballet,
Right.
So, and now that Peter Pan and Aladdin, I've never seen those ballets,
Real.
but
Was
I mean,
amazing. Is that what
yeah.
it was called? Okay.
Yeah. So it's our family series.
Yes.
I love
It's
that.
a little bit
Yeah.
different story, but along the same
Right.
storyline.
It's
That's
usually
so-
based off of like a Hans Christensen story or
Yes.
like one of the old,
The older.
not a Disney version.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Not the Disney
I love
version.
that. I love it.
But that's part of then when we talk about the production, we say there's lots of different, like Cinderella, the story of Cinderella exists in many different cultures in a different way.
I love that.
But you're grabbing the students' attention or
Mhm.
even the chaperones or the teacher's attention because it's something that they're familiar with.
Right. And it's a little different. So then when you're talking and you're saying, okay, we're going to do a workshop, storytelling, how would you tell the story of Cinderella?
I love that.
What would you do with movement that would tell the story different?
I love that.
So, or, how do you tie it into writing down? So again, tying in humanities and, all those
yeah.
things that there's lots of different directions that dance can launch you into.
Yes, for sure. Well, and in this day and age with all of the, technology, it's amazing. But it also is kind of a downfall with AI, and it's a good thing, but it can be a bad thing where kids are on their phones and their iPads and things. So things like this helps them to use their imagination and be creative. They're on their computers all day at school. It's just so good to bring
Yeah.
this amazing art form like into their world because it's probably very foreign to a lot of
Mhm.
people, So I just think it's so good to get them immersed in it because it's just,
Yeah.
technology it's hard for me because they're just always doing this, and so
Well, imagine what it's going to be like in 60 years.
yeah. So I just think
Who
pushing
knows?
stuff like this is so important.
Well, and also I think we're at a point too with technology that we're trying not to lose our ability to be and remain in control of it.
Yes. Yeah.
And say, okay, we have AI that is moving so quickly.
Mhm.
How do we use it to enhance our creativity
Right.
instead of letting
Yeah,
AI
take over.
create it?
Yeah.
I need an idea of, this is the app I want to build, or this is the setting I want to
Mhm.
build. And how do I use these tools to help achieve that? And then it opens your eyes to more possibilities and more
Right.
art forms. And so it's not just that you're coming to see the ballet. as a dance, but there's the set design, the costume
Yeah,
design,
there's
the
so many
music
things.
connections, the storytelling, the geometry of how do you move around on stage, what shapes are you, the
Yeah.
lines and, you know,
I never thought about that actually until we did one of our last
Yes.
interviews. She's a drill team coach and, she teaches at a studio and she's also a CPA. Just a very educated woman, very smart. And she talked about math and using that with formations and choreography. And she's like, you use the math with moving your dancers around. And I never thought of it that way. So you use it.
well, we have teachers
So
that when we're
amazing.
working with the fifth graders and you have a student that has a hard time at a desk on a piece of paper understanding math concepts, and you put them into a gymnasium and you're now saying, okay, we're going to split the room in half. And this group, we're going to split the numbers in half. So
Hmm.
here's 20 that go on this side and 20 that go on that side. And now we're going to create a diagonal line and we're going to then shift that diagonal line to the other. So you can suddenly take these concepts that on paper
It's hard
Makes
to.
no
it
sense.
makes no sense. And then the intrinsic activity that the way that you use that movement to then say, okay, now I'm experiencing it in my cells, in
Hmm.
my body,
Yeah.
and it makes sense.
So
And so
nice.
teachers who are good teachers take that and go, okay, now I see Mary is learning in a different way.
Hmm.
John is experiencing storytelling in a much different way. And in the classroom, I can say, now remember when you were in dance class and you
Hmm.
did this, this, and this. And if you have a teacher that also embraces that, then you really make some connections and
Oh,
some
for sure.
possibilities of moving forward. And that's with a
Wow.
lot of different art forms.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So we kind of talked about the vision behind Ballet West for kids and outreach and things like that. So we're just going to kind of move on to my experience with you at the Ballet West Conservatory, mainly at the University of Utah.
where the classes were being held.
Yes, that's where classes were held when I was there.
Right.
I remember your classes very vividly. Like I was saying earlier, especially your adagios, like adagio combinations, they were hard. They were just very hard.
What is the definition of adagio?
Slow.
Okay.
Slow.
Like big movements, but holding them,
Yes,
Okay.
and
Yes,
holding them
okay.
forever
moving
and
them
ever
in
and
those
ever.
big. Yeah. So it's a tempo. A music term, it's a tempo
Okay.
versus allegro would be fast.
Fast.
And usually it's small, fast little movements versus big movements that are slow. But it could be a partnered, you're doing, partnering that's a slower section versus a faster. Yeah. So
Yeah. But that's why it was so hard. It was towards the end of bar, and then you do it in center. But I just remember the ones at the bar, and you would just make us hold our legs in the air forever and ever and ever and ever. And when I was young, it was hard, and when you're a young dancer training, you don't have that well, some do, some just have that natural ability to lift their leg clear up high in the air. But there's so many things that you have to think of all at once.
So
And
part of that too is also the empowerment of what control you have of yourself.
Yeah.
So when you're learning these steps, and Jan Fugit was great, she had this phrase that she called self-selection. And it was the kids that chose to make things work, even though they were difficult, and whether or not they were going to succeed. Sometimes you could tell that a dancer was in the classes because mom made them
Yeah.
be in
Mhm.
classes or dad wanted them to be. They had done it their whole lives, and so they weren't going to quit. But there's other ones that you say, this is something I have a passion about. But then you go and you say, okay, I'm going to lift my leg to the side. And you go and you put it there. And then I come by and I go, okay, do it again. And now go 2 inches higher. And they do it. And you say, so why did you go to that
Yeah.
lower height versus this is your choice that you decide? It's
Okay.
hard either way.
You might
Neither
as
of them are
well.
easy. But if you go to this, then you can progress forward. It's a different way of challenging yourself. It's hard. It's painful. It's difficult. You're building muscle fiber. You're
Yes.
building strength. But if you want to improve and work on your technique or get that leg higher, and I also was a big one on the geometry of ballet. So if you take your leg and you take it to the side and you go through a retiré, which is a position that you've got your foot comes from the bottom, you bend your knee and then you take your leg out. And then from there, if you're going to lift the leg higher, you have all this gravity from your hip to your foot that's pushing
Pulling it
down on that
down.
leg. But if you take that leg as it's called a développé, so you're developing that step, and rather than going to here and going out, you go up and past it, and then you remember
Yes,
this,
I
yes?
do remember.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So that you actually then the leg is here, and from the top, the gravity forces that come down on the leg are much less than if it's longer.
I remember you saying it's harder to hold your leg out at 90
Yeah,
degrees than it is whatever it's 75,
Right.
whatever degrees that is. I remember you
Yeah.
talking like very in depth actually about all
Yeah.
of that.
But it becomes a choice, and
Mhm.
that's the empowerment of saying, "You're the one that makes this choice, not me."
Yeah, it's true. Even though you were always watching. But I feel like that does help the dancers know that you expect a lot. You know what I mean? You expect a lot out of
Or I
them
saw the
because they have
potential that was
potential.
there. Yeah.
And that makes a really good teacher
Mm.
too, because when you don't expect a lot, I think that's when you're like, "Eh, wait, I just don't really care." No.
Giving class
Yeah,
rather
you're
than
just
teaching.
giving class. Exactly. I love that.
Mm.
We're kind of already just talking about this, but you did through all of those things, you taught me to push myself to be more than just, like what you said with tell me the lady's name. Yeah.
Jan, Fugit, yeah.
Tell me again what
Self-selection.
self-selection. I love that.
Like, whether you're gonna succeed or not is up to
It's up to
you.
you. Yeah.
And if you're doing it for yourself, there's a reason that you're gonna succeed. If you're doing it for somebody else and you don't have the passion, why bother? Dance is
Yeah.
too hard, and you're probably better at something else. Why do something that you don't have a passion? Like, I would
Exactly.
rather lose a student as a paying student. Like, we're doing well enough with the enrollment.
Mhm.
It's like not like we need kids in the school to make money. We need kids in this school to make artists.
Yes.
That's our goal, is to share the art form, not to make money off of these
Right.
kids. And
Yeah.
that's a hard thing for parents to understand. And for me, oftentimes when we go into like parent teacher conferences with the
Mm.
kid, you would say, "Look, I'm going to be straightforward with you. I'm going to be honest." Like, a lot of times, like, why aren't they advancing a level?
Yeah.
And I would say, "Look, I care about your child and giving them the education. And if they're ready halfway through the year to move up a level, we'll move them then.
Yeah.
But if you move them too soon and they're not ready, I'd rather have them overtrained at a lower level than undertrained at a higher level, and they're feeling like they're doing a dog paddle and they're
Yeah.
just trying to keep up." Like, give them the solid. But if you are so adamant that your child needs to be in a higher level, I will say, I'm holding to this principle
Mhm.
of, this is what your child needs. This is my expertise. That is certainly not going to hurt them to have them spend more time, and they'll actually advance quicker
Right.
on the end. But that should tell you something. If I'm going to be willing to lose you as a patron, a
Right.
client, a student, because I'm being honest with you, then I'm not, I'm here for your money.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that should mean a lot.
Mhm.
Because
totally.
you have businesses that will do it
Mhm.
just for the
Yes.
enrollment and the
Right.
numbers. And you got to hold true to some.
Also, it's good for parents to understand because the teachers are with the students in class. The parents aren't, you know what I mean? And so the teachers, they know a little bit what they're talking about, and you know what I mean? Yeah. So there's that level of
Well, here's another
respect.
factor too that I don't think that people realize with the art forms, these art forms, music, dance, drama, things like that. So how old were you when you first started
At Ballet West,
as a dancer?
like 3 or 4.
Okay.
Probably 4.
And how many teachers did you have that you had for a number of years consistently? Who was your most consistent teacher that you worked with?
Probably like you and Shari Lane.
Shari.
Yeah,
Okay.
Shari.
Yeah. So how many years do you think you took classes from her?
Maybe 3, 2, 3, 4.
So we'll have students that are in the academy for 6, 7,
Yeah.
8 years.
Yeah.
And when you're going
These
to public
teachers,
school, you
yeah.
have them for a year and then they're gone.
Mhm.
So I'll get to know you that year. But when I start to get to know you over 5, 6 years, you really know
them.
these kids and
Yeah.
how they're working.
Yes. Their work ethic and
And that's why with Adam in the trainee program, the second company,
That's
you
really
really get to know these kids instead
Yeah.
of just walk across the floor.
Right. I
Keep
love
going
that.
back to that
Yeah.
concept,
I love that.
That's
you know?
I think Ballet West is an amazing company. It's amazing. I wish there was a Ballet West Academy out my way. I know there's a lot of academies this way, and I'm sure you guys are trying to reach the whole state, you know what I mean? Like, just with
Well, we do have some satellites. We have a campus up in Park City. We
Yeah.
have a campus down in Utah Valley.
Mm.
We did have one up in Ogden area a while
okay.
ago, but that was quite some time ago. And
Mm.
there's some schools, there's a lot of schools up there.
Yeah.
I remember having a student that would drive down every day with her mom in a big Suburban from Evanston, Wyoming,
Oh,
every single day.
that is incredible.
She'd be the ones that would show up in the blizzard. And you're like,
Absolutely.
okay, there's 3 kids in class and one is
You're here. Yeah.
Nicole from Evanston, you know?
Oh
And
gosh, parents are amazing. Like,
Mhm.
the things that they do to get their kids to, you know,
yeah,
these things that they love, you
If
know.
you can get from Evanston
I
in
know.
a snowstorm, you can get
they're from
across-
Ogden.
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
is
And the thing is,
exactly-
like, Chelsea Kiefer, Courtney Murphy, they all came down from, like, Huntsville and up in that area
yeah.
too. They would carpool,
Yeah. Mhm.
you know, and so one day one mom would drive, another day another
Yeah,
mom would drive,
yeah.
and, you know,
We
so
have a cute one
there's
of
ways.
my oldest daughter's friend. She's lives right by me, and she comes to Ballet West. I think she goes to the what is it, Charlie Square
Yeah,
campus?
Charlie Corners. Yeah,
Or
that's
she
the younger.
did.
Yeah, that's the younger
Yeah,
kids right
or
now.
maybe she did. So she's 14 now. She was actually one of the Claras last year in Nutcracker.
Oh.
Daphne Smith is her last name.
Okay.
So yeah, she's
Cool.
adorable. She's over at my house all the time. Eats
Sometimes
all
the
the
world.
string cheese in my house.
That's so funny. Sometimes the world is so small.
I know, it's
It's
crazy.
freaky.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is crazy. But yeah, so just you were just one of those teachers that just really made a lasting impact on me, just not only because of the way that you taught, but it wasn't always about ballet either, you know what I mean? Like ballet, your training that you receive kind of just meshes into life lessons as well, you know?
Because you're
So
creating young adults.
yeah, you're not just creating dancers, you're actually helping shape the next generation of leaders. And so it's important to create a well-rounded dancer, but also somebody that can move into society and be a functioning member of society, you know? So
Mhm.
it's just amazing. Okay, so your lasting impact. Like I said, looking back, those things that have stayed with me is, you know, hard work and how I approach even just the way that I teach my kids, you know, just they don't dance, but there's some things that you and other teachers have taught me that I use in the way that I raise my children, you know? So just having that high expectation and not demanding, but expecting kind of respect from them. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, so that's kind of what I learned from.
Yeah, I think part of that comes from as an adult, as a member of society, having been here as long as I have. You never know what your impact is going to be as you move through life on how other people react.
Right.
And if you set a high standard for yourself and say, I'm going to do the best. I'm human. I'm going to
Yeah.
make some mistakes here and there. I get that, but I want them to be as small as possible.
Yes.
And what I want to do is empower people to understand how much control they actually really do have. Because a lot of times you don't feel like you have control of your
Right.
life. But there are decisions that you can make and things that you're willing to accept or you're not willing to accept
Mm.
that I think are really important. And that can be taught in a studio, but it
Mhm.
also gets taught with people that really get to know you over
Right.
time. And even if it's just one time, if they can sense that you have those ethics and that approach to how you're conducting yourselves and that you're constantly on the path to improve and be
Mhm.
stronger and be better and to learn from the mistakes you made
Mhm.
and say, okay, I made a mistake, or just come at approach from different direction
Yeah.
and say,
Yeah.
what's a different way to make this work?
Yeah. I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
What do you hope your students carry with them, like long after they leave your class or just with the education outreach.
That they have control of their lives, that they have control of the choices that they make. And the world has so many different directions you can go and what it can offer. And so much of life goes by like this with blinders on, that the more you can take this and just widen it a little bit, it gets easier for each time until then you don't need them. And that's, I think, the big thing is, and it's also how I approach how I live my life, to be constantly learning, is if you keep that attitude that you can always learn and improve and move forward and embrace new concepts, new technologies, and also fix misconceptions. Like, what did you learn that was wrong? And you kind of go, oh, and I can change. I can have a different philosophy. Who knew? Right? So I guess that's really part of it. Is that you really have so much power in your life.
Yes, for sure.
And a lot of people give that power away.
Yeah.
And so if it's been taken from you, how do you get it back?
Right. Yeah. And you can do it. I love that. That's very good insight and advice. So you're very wise. Very wise. Well, Peter, thank you. I can't thank you enough for being able to just sit down and kind of talk about your life. And I mean, I've never been able to do this with you. You know what I mean? And as an adult, as a child, when you were teaching me, our relationship was very different, you teacher-student relationship. But as an adult, it's so fun and neat to just sit down and hear about your journey with dance and with this company, and it's just an amazing company. The things that you've accomplished is incredible. So I just can't thank you enough for inviting us here to come and just have a chat with you. It's been such an honor.
It's been great for me. It's fun to touch bases again.
Yeah.
That's another fun element of this, is encountering students that you knew when they were younger and see where they've gone with their lives and how their experiences in the arts influence their lives.
Right. Oh my goodness. I mean, so I grew up wanting to be a professional dancer, but that didn't happen. But it has stayed with me. It has stayed with me for my whole life, where I went on to college and I was teaching ballet and trying to be like you and other teachers. You know what I mean? Just trying to incorporate the things that you taught me. And then going from that to getting married and having children, and ballet just kind of like not leaving my life, but it just wasn't there like it was when I was young, because I was focusing on raising my family, But now it's kind of come back into my life in a very different way than I thought that it ever would, where I have this store on stage where I am not dancing or teaching, but I get to be around teachers and all of these young dancers that come into my store to get fitted for their first PowerPoint shoes. And I'm not a part of it as much because I run the back end of everything. Running a business is like the administrative side of things is a lot, And so my life has definitely gone totally different than what I envisioned. But ballet and the things that I learned from you and all my other teachers have just helped me along the way and helped me become like the business owner and the mom and that I am now. I'm not perfect, but I did learn a lot from ballet and from my amazing teachers. So
that's cool.
But you definitely instilled in me a love for working hard and for striving to be probably more than I think that I can be. So um, you're the kind of teacher who demands excellence, but also gives the tools to rise to the occasion. Like we said, the long adagios and the tough corrections weren't just about ballet. They were about building discipline and resilience and artistry that carry forward for a lifetime. So that's the mark of a teacher who truly shapes dancers and humans. So, and those lessons for me have lasted far beyond the studio. And I think they last far beyond the studio for lots of dancers and kids, children, even in the elementaries, you know what I mean? And the junior highs and things like that. So thank you, Peter.
Thanks for asking me.
Thanks for having us. This was amazing. So amazing. To our listeners, I hope today's episode reminds you of the teachers and mentors who've made a lasting impact in your life. So reach out to them and tell them thank you. Because, even if they were clear back from 30 years ago, it's almost been
thank you does
30
go a long
years.
way.
Yeah.
But it's very rewarding and it's fun to see the people you work with thrive and find happiness and use those tools in a positive way themselves and see, you might have a kid that comes in for a fitting for a pair of shoes and your encounter with this child is one time,
Yeah.
but that experience can go really
Oh,
sour or it can
very.
be like one of the, that's a, like
That is
huge moment
huge.
for a little
Mhm.
ballerina. It's like that first pair of pointe shoes can be hugely
Oh,
successful and something they've dreamed about for
their
so
whole
long,
life.
and it can veer off the wrong direction so fast if you've got the wrong approach as
Yeah.
a store owner,
Yeah.
as a, working with them. And so realize that you have the opportunities to really have a lot of
Oh.
impact too.
The dance world is filled with incredible people like Peter and who help shape the next generation of dancers. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Keeping You On Stage podcast. Be sure to subscribe, share this episode with your friends, all your dancer friends. I really think that this episode will be so amazing to listen to, even for like PTA members at school. So like I seriously want to go sit down with the PTA at my school and talk to them about this because this is such a good opportunity for even schools in my area. And let's share this with our friends to keep the world of dance alive. Until next time, happy dancing.